Hey, everybody. All right. So I found out something new. People are drilling holes into their washers. Why are people drilling holes into their washers? I came across it on Facebook, and it took me down this wonderful rabbit hole down the lovely TikTok.
Nice.
Where there were several people doing this. Okay. What do you mean they're drilling? What do you mean they're drilling holes? They're drilling holes into their baskets. Let's watch a couple of them, shall we?
Do you have this washing machine and it's always unbalanced? I can save you $700 in a few minutes.
$700? What's costing you $700?
And a bit or some screws.
I don't like seeing a drill.
Screws, but let me insert the video. So to get out of there with that noise box. I have had an issue with this Samsung washing machine for like the last month or so.
Last month?
Always unbalanced, and I always have to like hand wring out the towels, reposition them. Like something is always an issue that it's unbalanced.
There's probably
so I was scrolling on TikTok and I saw this girl say like if she would have just drilled some holes, it would have saved her $700. So I was like, what is she talking about?
She don't know what she's talking about. Don't listen to her. Whoever this person is, you shouldn't listen to her. No. Don't put that in there. Don't drill that in.
And y'all did. I drilled a hole. Look how much water is coming out.
That water's supposed to be there. Oh, you guys, don't do that. So I clicked, just her video and found another one. It then took me to another person's video. He pinned it to the top of his TikTok.
This is part two.
Oh, this is part two.
To fix it. So
I'm not even gonna bother watching part one.
Washing machine and shake it. If you hear water sloshing around, that means you got water stuck up in here.
Yep. The water that's supposed to be there because that's your balance ring.
And drill yourself some holes. Get that water out of there. Once the water is out, it should work fine.
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't work fine. And I click on that, and then there is a search on TikTok. Drilling holes, Samsung unbalanced. Here's another.
You got a top load washer. Does it go unbalanced and bang like somebody's fighting in there? Check this out. Did water just come out?
Did water just come out? Yes, water just came out because it's supposed to be there.
What? Water's coming out.
Yes, water's coming out because you just ruined your basket. Why are people doing this, and where does that water come from? Why is that water there?
Why? We're
going to answer those questions today, and hopefully you'll learn something. So you don't drill holes into your washing machine and cost you hundreds of dollars. Better yet, you're a new technician and you want to learn more about these units, and you probably come across this and you're probably wondering, what is that? Why is there water in there? I did the same thing when I first started. I know hundreds of technicians who, when they first started, questioned it too. Why is there water in there? What's the point of having water on that basket? What's going on? Well, usually you need a professional technician to tell you what and why that's there. But if you don't believe me, go to any Lowe's, Home Depot, anywhere that sells an appliance, walk up to any top-load washing machine and spin that basket. See if there's water in there. Brand new on the floor. I guarantee you every single top-load washing machine will have water, liquid in there. It's like a salt water mix that they put in there. Sometimes it's all one chamber, sometimes there's multiple chambers in there depending on the size of the basket and what they're trying to accomplish. And if you don't believe me, here is the actual manufacturer talking about it. One of the manufacturers, because every single manufacturer does this. But here's one manufacturer Whirlpool, the fine people at Appliance Fix Live. If you're a servicer, if you're a W servicer, if you're not watching Appliance Fix Live, you're missing out on some great content. They push out real information, stuff that's not in tech sheets, stuff that's not in service manual. They're trying to teach you how these units work, and I appreciate everything that they're doing at Appliance Fix Live. So here's a clip from when they talked about balance ring, because if you don't believe me, here's some actual engineers talking about just that.
Yep. And there was one other piece of the balance system.
Yeah, the balance ring.
Yeah, so we got a 3D print here of a cross section. So I had the cross section on the screen earlier, but this is a physical representation. So color coded the different components. We got the tub ring on top.
Is blue, right?
Is blue. The green would be the wall of the tub. This black part is the basket wrapper, so that's the stainless steel that you see when you open the lid. And then this red portion is the balance ring. And the balance ring is for the high speed and mid speed region specifically. The balance ring is probably even more important than the suspension. So what this does is we fill it with water, but not completely full of water. We fill these about half full of water. Some machines might have one chamber. This particular model has 2 chambers. They're sealed from each other. Water can't migrate from one chamber to the other. But we fill these with water, and as we spin, or as we're sitting stationary, we've got,
a cross section.
This is a cross section of a real
balance
ring. Right. Yep. And we put acrylic on here and filled some water in there.
Right? Like that.
Yep.
Periodically, just to
baffles,
keep water from just swirling around.
Yeah, we need to control the water in there so it
little
doesn't slosh.
Yeah.
But we do want the water to be able to move. So as we're sitting idly in the machine, the water is collected at the bottom of the balance ring. It's not doing anything. But as we go into spin, we develop forces that push the water out sideways, like swinging a bucket of water around. And so I can represent the spinning forces just by rotating this here. So when we're up into higher speeds, the water actually goes vertical and it's spread around the perimeter of this balance ring. But because the wash unit is spinning around its center of gravity, some portions of the water are closer to the spin axis and other portions are farther away. So the water actually ends up congregating on the side of the balance ring that is farthest away from the spin center. If you remember, the off balance pulled the center of gravity towards the off balance. But then since the other side is farther away, the water goes over to the other side. So the water ends up creating a counterbalance.
So if I took my coffee cup and I smacked it to the left, you would see the coffee slosh to the right. And it's designed and tuned to slosh opposite of the rock to try to keep it from moving. And it's dynamic. And that's like a really cool thing. More than 20 years ago, I have a story where I was taken apart for an out of balance condition on an old leap washer, and I love those things. But I pulled the balance ring out. I didn't know it was a balance ring at a time, and it was rubbed through. It was an old washer from clothes hitting it. And I pulled it out, it was cracked, like, oh, maybe this is the problem. Oh, it has water and it's creating it out of balance. And I took it to the old man, and I was like, yeah, I drained the water out, I think this is the out of balance. And he's like, no, that's the balance ring. And I thought, and immediately I was just illuminated, and I was like, oh, well, we need the balance ring. I just made it worse.
Yep.
That's exactly what I was going to say. All of it. The center thing and the other thing. I mean, if it ain't, you took the words right out of my mouth. I probably wrote the script, I want to say they do it once a month, but phenomenal content is shared. So if you're a servicer, go check them out. And if you have access to Service Matters, that's a great resource to have right now. It's Appliance Fix Live. I mean, really lean into the manufacturer and look at what's available to you. But we're actually going to go take a look at some units, because if you still, for some crazy reason, still don't believe that that's supposed to be there,
I don't believe it. It's not possible.
Because as you can see in these comments, that was his response to me telling him that, hey, it's supposed to be like that. So let's go look at some units. So we don't have to go far. So let's look at this Maytag unit right here. Oh, I hear water. Let's go look at some baskets. So here we got some front load baskets here, and here's a top load basket. Yep, got water in the balance ring. We got more units over here. Let's go take a look. Yep, water. Here's some more units right here. Yep, it's the laundry center. I mean, I can do this on any top load.
How do you tell somebody that you care about deeply? I told you so.
All right, so now we know what these balance rings are for. What caused the customers to have issues to begin with? What led the customers to drill holes into their basket? All right, so there's a few failures that can happen that can cause the unit to go out of balance. First one, and the easiest one to fix as a consumer or as a technician, is recognizing if the load itself is out of balance, meaning the customer might have mixed their laundries. If you're going to have 20 pair of blue jeans in there, then you need to have only 20 pair of blue jeans. You don't need to have a pile of jeans with a few light shirts and maybe a towel or anything like that. That is going to probably be out of balance.
Do you even wash it? No, I don't wash the towel. The towel washes me. Who washes a towel?
So mixing your laundry or having blankets mixed with other clothing items or sheets, it's a mess. So make sure that you're, going over this with the customer, and if you're a consumer yourself, recognize what can actually be causing. So the first thing you want to do if you have an out of balance issue is to redistribute your clothes. Most machines themselves, I can speak for Whirlpool units, they will attempt 3 times to recorrect any out of balance. That means that they'll fill with water, redistribute the clothes by, adding some agitation. And you might notice this after the rinse cycle. You might notice that the unit keeps filling and agitating, and then it will drain and try to spin, and you might hear some banging. What the unit's trying to do is redistribute your clothing so it can properly spin out. And these units will do this 3 times before finally giving up, throwing a fall coat, or draining the water out and just going into standby mode. Your clothes are not going to be stuck to the basket like they spun out. They're going to be soaking wet. That's typically when you know that your unit has failed on an out of balance. Other things that can cause it, from suspension rods, basket bearings, and drive shaft issues and things like that, those are going to be a little bit different. Those are actual mechanical failures with unit itself, so those are different. Now, the most common failure when it comes to these out of balance is going to be the suspension rod. And those are pretty easy to diagnose. Just like suspension on a car, push down on the basket and it continues to bounce, well, then you know you got bad suspensions. That's pretty easy to diagnose. As technicians, those are our first steps when we're dealing with out of balance issues. We walk up to the washer, and the first thing we do is push down on the basket and, put a load on the suspension, let go. That basket should come right to the top and stop. It should not come to the top and continue to bounce this way. If it does, that's telling us we got bad suspension. If you ever been in a car that has bad suspension, as soon as you go over a bump, you notice that your car continues to bounce. It's the same thing on a washing machine. Other things are a little bit harder to diagnose, like the death wobble. The death wobble is related to the bearing on the washing machine being bore out over some time. This is not typical on newer units. This is going to be year plus units that can go into this. If units are constantly overloaded, units constantly going out of balance by customer issues, like not distributing your load properly, those kind of things will affect it. And that could cause you to have bearing issues down the line. So those are a little bit harder to diagnose. I mean, those you will push on the basket and you'll see that there's no issue, but you want to kind of rock the basket in its position. And lastly, one of the more rare situations is any potential issues with the drive shaft. You might have some play in that drive shaft, and that can cause some out of balance issues. But the most common failures for out of balances are going to be, number one, customer issues, and that's going to be your distribution of your clothes in the wash machine. You want to make sure they're evenly spread out inside your basket. Now, if you're grabbing your basket and dumping your clothes in there, closing the lid and hitting start, yeah, that unit's probably going to go out of balance. Probably very early on into the cycle. Number 2 is going to be, of course, your suspension, and that's an easy check. We'll show you here right now. All right, so let's use this Maytag here as our example of this is what good suspension should do. And this is how you test it. You will put your hand on the agitator. If you have a wash plate, you're going to have to reach in here and push on the wash plate. But if you have an agitator, it's a little bit easier, but you want to grab it and just push down on it. As you can see, I can push down and it comes right back up. There's no bounce. If that basket goes down and starts continuing to bounce after you let go of it and it still bounces, you have bad suspension. So those top two are going to be the most common failures related to any out of balance issue. So what you don't want to do is drill holes into your basket, because all you're doing is countering a potential failure. Now, you can start with maybe having one or two bad suspension rods and you drill a hole and drain that water out. And now you kind of countered that failure and the unit's able to spin better and you think you fixed it. Well, that's going to be short lived. Your suspension is going to continue to get much worse. Eventually, all the suspension rods will fail, will give out. And then no matter what you do, it will never, ever, 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 ever stabilize. And then when you do finally make that repair, well, then, now you got a basket that won't stabilize. So that's much worse. That is way more expensive than just making that original repair. Now, of course, there is some cheaper alternatives, and this is something to talk to a technician about. There is some products out there like Bounce Be Gone. I've heard phenomenal things. We don't use it currently, but we are looking into it. We see other servicers doing it, and Bounce Be Gone is a cheaper alternative to a customer. So currently, not every servicer is going to provide you with Bounce Be Gone. So just make sure that you contact your servicer and, speak to your technician about what your available options. Some servicers are only going to do OEM repairs. That means that they're going to show up and they're going to recommend replace the suspension with OEM parts. They're not going to try to refurbish those suspensions. Now, some other servicers are offering that as a service at a cheaper cost to try to refurbish your existing suspension rods by using a product called Bounce Be Gone. I'll attach it here, probably somewhere in my face or something. I don't know. It's going to be here, maybe here. I don't. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But that is something to communicate with your servicer if they do offer that service. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at an OEM repair. But regardless, either refurbishing your suspension rods or replacing your suspension rods, both of those repairs are still going to be a lot cheaper than having to buy a brand new unit or drilling holes into your washer. That's just going to buy you maybe a couple of months before you have to buy a new unit, because once you drill those holes, the servicer is going to have to replace that basket to fix your issue. And that cost of repair is going to be more than a brand new unit. So at that point, you've cost yourself more money instead of just making the cheaper repair. Either refurbishing or replacing with OEM, those are going to be cheaper regardless. So if you're a consumer or a technician, now you know you're supposed to have water in that balance ring. That is what it's there for. We hope you liked today's video, and if you want to see more content from us, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.